I understand that you, fans of the Chicago Bulls, tried to believe the team, at least the most optimistic, but reality always knocks on the door in the NBA. The start with 5 wins and 19 games had its most terrible chapter on Tuesday, 28, with a 27-point loss to the Boston Celtics. The game was also valid for the NBA Cup, a tournament in which the team did not win a single victory. Many were angry when Free Throw TV's prediction stated that the team was deluding themselves in the league or that they were in the worst position in the NBA. However, if at that moment we were talking about the team not being good and not bad enough, it seems we reached an extreme in 2023/24. Yeah, the Chicago Bulls are one of the worst teams of the NBA season. It's hard to measure the campaign in a nutshell. So let's understand what happens to one of the Eastern Conference's most traditional franchises, and the reason why his protagonism in the league becomes increasingly an article of rarity in recent years. Or rather, since his greatest hero, Michael Jordan, stopped playing. It is true that, since then, several executives have gone through the franchise. Therefore, it is not fair to put everything on the back of Arturas Karnisovas, Vice President of Basketball Operations and responsible for the formation of the current cast. But the lack of emphasis, confidence, and some very wrong steps start here. Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler led the campaign together until the second round in the 2015 playoffs. In fact, it was there that the Bulls last won a series and also a playoff game in Chicago. However, the next campaign, failing to qualify for the decisive phase for the first time in 8 years, was a milestone. It was there that Chicago chose Butler. Rose, in turn, was traded to the New York Knicks. But the choice had no conviction. It only lasted a year. And finally, a great combination of nothing and a cast that didn't make any sense with Rajon Rondo and Dwayne Wade in 2016-17. Reconstruction would come a year later. Even though the franchise had hardened a series for the Eastern leader that year, Boston Celtics. Butler moved to the Minnesota Timberwolves, Wade to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and Rondo to the New Orleans Pelicans. A major Bulls asset at the time, Butler was traded for names that marked the reconstruction of the franchise. Zach LaVine, still far from being a star, freshman Lauri Markkanen, and a promising young man who ultimately had the worst career of the three, Chris Dunn. There, for long years of defeats began and were mismanaged by names like the terrible coach Jim Boylan. Some really promising freshmen went through the franchise, such as Wendell Carter, Bobby Portis, Daniel Gafford, and Markkanen himself. Others, not so much, like Max Struss and Cameron Payne. Everyone found their best time in game elsewhere. Some of the first-round picks that did not succeed in the period were Denzel Valentine, Justin Patton, and Chandler Hutchinson. By the way, no one from this trio has been successful in the NBA. But in which group do the current young people, often criticized, fit? I speak of Kobe White, Patrick Williams, Ayo Dosunmu, and Dallin Terry. Are they really bad? Or are they in a franchise that sinks young players? Understand, it's not a destructive criticism, but it's just a realization. What is so wrong? But let's get back to our retrospective. Chicago was very bad from the 2017-18 to 2020-21 season. In a period of 4 years, there were 102 wins and 199 losses. It's a very realistic window for a team in reconstruction, especially for those who have only managed a top 4 draft pick since then. But then there was a doubt. After all, the franchise was wasting LaVine's heyday? The star, who may be the beginning of the end of the current moment of the franchise with his trade rumors, was the great reason to try to take the next step. He became a scorer of over 25 points per game and a great pitcher. A complete offensive player, but who could not win games in a team that even had young talent, but with zero fit. That's when, in the middle of 2020-21, a failed 4th season, Chicago took advantage of the NBA domino. The Orlando Magic would leave for a full reconstruction after 2 years falling in the first round and many injuries since the beginning of that campaign. The team's biggest star, Nikola Vucevic, went to the Bulls, representing the new competitive moment the team would live after years in the NBA mud. The pair were already seen as very powerful. Remember that the now criticized Vucevic was one of the best offensive pivots in the league at that time. Qualifying for the play-in has not yet come to the end of that campaign, but an aggressive and ultimate market awaited the Bulls during the 2021 offseason. The exchange aged badly. Chicago sent in Wendell Carter, who became one of the game's most versatile pivots, and the picks of future All-Star Franz Wagner and 2023 lottery pick Jet Howard. The rest of the story, you certainly know. Chicago signed Lonzo Ball and DeMar DeRozan and had one of the most exciting teams in the league in the first 40 games of 2021-22. However, an injury to the point guard, who has not played in the NBA since, diminished the team's performance. Until then, the new team had 27 wins and 13 losses. Since then, there have been 64 wins and 79 losses. The team only managed to make the playoffs in the partnership's first season. Is it lack of fit? Maybe. In the current season, no trio that played more than 300 minutes together has as bad a point balance as LaVine, DeRozan, and Vucevic. Lonzo was the glue that glued everything on the team? Unlucky with another injury of historical proportions, rose feelings? All a little. The cast that did not present great answers already in the last games of the 2021-22 campaign only took Andre Drummond as reinforcement for the following year. They only really improved when they brought in Patrick Beverley in the 2022-23 deadline trade. However, the improvement that almost drove the team to the playoffs eluded the franchise again. No change, one more chance for the new trio. After all, ball can come back in 2024, right? The signings of Wendell Carter and Torrey Craig, who married some of the team's needs, excited. But the same question from the free throw prediction for the Bulls season comes back to the fore. Is it worth having good supporting players if their leadership does not match? The answer is usually no. A little break here, basketball fans. I'm bringing an incredible novelty to the true NBA lovers. Introducing the Plash Shop, the best store to buy jerseys. At Plash Shop Voce, you will find the best price on the market, with parts starting at $49 and many other promotions. Why just cheer when you can wear the greatness? The store link will be in the first pinned comment. Next, the Chicago Bulls is one of the most popular franchises of the Eastern Conference. History, Michael Jordan, symbolism, titles. It's hard to go against that account. And to be defeated just by the most popular team, Celtics, which has been competing practically since 2008 with 1 or 2 seasons apart, in this way, humiliated, was certainly symbolic. LaVine, who was open to a trade, scored a measly 2 points. Hit 1 of 9 shots. Unacceptable for the player who is the owner of the team. That's why the Chicago franchise needs to take the next step. It's worth remembering. DeRozan, who is in increasingly distant conversations to renew his contract, was up to well. Scored 19 points, strengthening a trend. After Lonzo Ball's injury, there were few nights where the duo worked well at the same time. Vucevic has tried, but is the most underdog in the Chicago Bulls team since the casting of this cast took place in the NBA. He scored just 8 points against Boston, landing 4 out of 11 pitches. Another lackluster night for a player who has led limited teams from Magic to the playoffs. Kobe White scored 19 points, Patrick Williams did 14, but they're too inconsistent despite their talent and potential. Is that their own fault? Coach Billy Donovan's press conference before the game against the Celtics is revealing the timing of the franchise. Not even the coach himself, in the meantime, seems to believe that the team deserves better luck. I believe that in life, your track record says a lot about who you are. This also works for sports, almost always. I wanted to come here and say that we were unlucky and that we could have 50% use. But that's not the case. The 5-13 represents what we are now, he admitted. There are rumors that the relationship between him and LaVine is not the best, despite the contrary signals of both publicly. There is a clear dissatisfaction of the team in how the attack is built. This was made clear after the beating at home for the Oklahoma City Thunder in the first game of the campaign, when a meeting was held between the players. But despite the share of players, the coach also has a lot of fault. This attack is static since Ball suffered his mysterious knee injury. The defense plays hard, it's true, but it has its holes. After all, it lacks a consistent rim protector. The team can no longer slow down the pace of accelerated games as it did in 2022-23 in its best days. And the latest news is that in addition to dear and respected, Donovan may be one of the minds behind Chicago's restructuring. It's not what I would do, honestly, even though I think he's capable of doing it. After all, he'll be insufficient again when the next step comes. There is no denying that those who postpone or miss the timing of competing and rebuilding do not usually get along in the league. Take the Washington Wizards and the Portland Trail Blazers, for example, with their insistences on Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard. The Chicago Bulls are not in a good place, and the stars aren't worth much in the NBA. The latest news on LaVine indicates that the main stakeholder is the Los Angeles Lakers. The Bulls, on the other hand, would demand Austin Reeves. Of course, the Los Angeles quarterback has potential, but did you know he's already 25? A little too old to head up a reconstruction that must be so clean. No? And who would be the young Lakers play that would make sense in a redesign? Jared Vanderbilt? Jalen Hood-Schifino? Max Christie? It doesn't look like a big package, which of course would come with choices that would be the big draw of the exchange. With the aging of the star LeBron James, the future picks of the Lakers can be high. But it's fair to say that, as Washington did, it seems that Chicago will have to accept much less than LaVine can actually be. The start of the season is not so good. despite a game of 50 points against Detroit. The salary is very high, almost $180 million for the next 4 years. And he's the great asset of the team. Here, many complications for the Chicago Bulls team in the NBA. Vucevic can be worth something in the market, especially for teams that want to complement their cast in search of a title. After all, it is still able to contribute to any attack if it is well used. The problem is the $20 million annual contract. It's not the most exchangeable thing in the world. The issue with DeRozan is even worse. Its fit is problematic in most NBA teams. It requires a lot of ball in hand, and despite being an underestimated passer, does not throw three. His play off the ball is inefficient and not a great defender. Who would be desperate to send something in a trade for a player that requires this kind of fit in their final year of contract? I can't imagine anyone at the moment. Alex Caruso may be the great asset of the team in the market. There is no doubt that they can get even a first-round pick from the defensive specialist. When the news about LaVine came out, rumors have already started to pop about possible interest in the athlete who was elected to the ideal defense team in 2022/23. Several of the favorites to the title would be interested. And, amid a possible arms race between powerful teams, Caruso can yield fruits that help the team get even more active to begin its restructuring. Another alternative is to exchange some of the young people who have not yet reached their greatest potential for more active in recruitment. The Detroit Pistons are not a great example of success in the league, but when they began rebuilding, they made 3 top 20 picks in the 2020, relegating young players Bruce Brown and Luke Kennard at the time. You can get something like that in the middle of rebuilding the Chicago Bulls team in the NBA. The last topic of this text goes to the direction of the franchise. After all, since Jordan left, 1998, are 25 campaigns, with 12 playoff rankings and only 5-1 series. Jerry Reinsdorf has been the owner since 1985. He's accused of sabotaging even the heyday of the franchise. Imagine the recent failure. A sale would be one of the best possible news. But the franchise should not go through the scenario in the near future. So we must look at things realistically. Arturas Karnisovas, like Billy Donovan, must also be retained by the franchise. The manager was given the green light to lead the restructuring of the Chicago Bulls team in the NBA. He will have to work with a very large level of creativity to improve the position of the team and start another restructuring. The results of this must be decisive for its permanence in the future. However, many remember that he is the great creator and defender of this core leadership that failed. These are complicated times. At least in the near future, the best memories of the Chicago Bulls should remain where they were in the last 25 years, in a very distant past. And thus, we conclude our round of news for today. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any NBA news. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter as well, as we provide updates throughout the day over there. Now, at the end, YouTube will be recommending some videos from our channel, so go ahead and watch them all. Until the next video, peace to all.